He's going all the way. 20, 15, 10. Touchdown. Texas Tech takes home the victory.
Welcome to this episode of the Broadway Shuffle, a Texas Tech sports podcast. I am Conrad here tonight with Zyler and Clayton. No Brennan for us tonight. He is in New York. He always seems to go to New York a few times a year for some reason, whether it's the Bills or a trip or whatever it may be. But hey, if you're joining us, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are trying to hit 3,000 subscribers before Texas Tech plays in the Cotton Bowl, or not Cotton Bowl, the Orange Bowl on January 1st. I was trying to manifest that because I wanted that so bad, but it didn't happen. So make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are talking college football playoff today. We're talking where Behren Morton ranks all time for Texas Tech quarterbacks and much more on this episode. So we want to start with that. Guys, where do we think Behren Morton, Texas Tech starting quarterback, ranks all time for you after being the starting quarterback on the first ever conference championship team for Texas Tech in this era of college football? Is he 1 for you, 2, 3? Where does he rank for you, Zyler?
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting argument. I think the 3 QBs for me, and this is just preference, but it's some combination of Graham, Pat, and Behren right now. I liked Cliff a lot. I think if you're going for career accolades, I like Harrell more. If you're going for pure talent, I like Mahomes more. And if you're going for team accomplishments, I like Behren more. And so for me, favorite QB while they were at Tech, I think it will still always be Graham. It would just take his career was so proficient. He has probably still the signature moment in Texas Tech football history. He's still my favorite QB of all time, but I think Behrens, and it's crazy to think about this, thinking about what I thought about Behren last year. I think he's all the way up to number 2 for me. The Big 12 title just means a lot. That's something that has never been done in your program's history. First outright title since 1955. That, to me, being the face of that team, is a huge mark in his favor, and he'll always have and it's weird to talk about a player whose career is not over, but he'll have a special place in my Texas Tech fandom heart because of that. That's kind of where I rank him, though. I go Graham, Behren, Pat in my mind.
I feel like I would probably still have him behind Pat right now, but an Orange Bowl win, I would probably move him above Pat, and I totally recognize like the Big 12 championship. I think for me, it's just like if you polled 100 Tech fans on who they'd rather, QB a team if they're building one from scratch, the fact that probably all 100 would take Pat still has him above Behren for me. But yeah, like I said, I think probably just one postseason win, and I would move Behren second just because that's, a New Year's Six Bowl win plus a Big 12 championship win plus the stats that he has would just be probably too much. Honestly, he could be 1 at that point, but I guess we'll debate that after that point.
So who's 1 for you, Graham?
Graham, yeah.
Let me ask you guys this about Graham. Obviously, I was not a Texas Tech fan when Graham was the quarterback, so I didn't watch the games like you did. But in this era of college football, with how it's changed and defenses seemingly have gotten better, I would say I don't think offenses have necessarily gotten worse. What do you think Graham would do as a starting quarterback on this year's Texas Tech team? Do you think it would be the exact same as what we saw during his career? I know the offense is different, but would you see the same level of production for him on this year's Texas Tech team and this year's Big 12?
Like, do I think it'd be better than Behren's production? I think yes.
Well, yes, but I'm talking the same production that he had 07, 08, 09.
No. I mean,
okay.
his 2007 or 2008 season, he has like almost 6,000 yards, like 48 touchdowns. It's like double what the Heisman candidates have this year. I don't think he would do anything in this day and age. He also wouldn't have the best receiver in the sport. Like, if you took Behren Morton and gave him Jordan Tyson or Jeremiah Smith on this team, I imagine his stats probably look considerably better. And not that Behren's stats are bad by any stretch, but I think Graham and his accuracy and his ability to throw the ball exactly where it was needed on 99% of the plays would just be lethal in this offense. And his ability to throw the deep ball was excellent. I think he'd be great in any era, but he would have been particularly good with this offense.
I think more recent Texas Tech fans, obviously, 2014 on, are so enamored with Pat, and rightfully so. But I think a lot of people just didn't really, even the students now, I mean, they know Graham Harrell's name, obviously inducted in the Ring of Honor, but they don't know him for the prowess that he had on the gridiron in the sense that they saw it with their own eyes. And so I think it's an interesting conversation, but I think for me, I'd probably go Graham 1, Pat 2, and then Behren 3 right now. But for me, that can change on January 1st, right? That can change. You win the Orange Bowl, and you move on. It's just really hard to argue with wins. Now, winning is not an individual position. Or an individual accolade. We've talked about this before, not liking to measure quarterbacks or really any player by what you won, because it is a team sport. Like it's, that's why it's always hard for me saying, well, Patrick Mahomes never won at Texas Tech. It's like, you obviously didn't watch those defenses that we had during those days. And so that he can't play defense and offense too. I mean, when you score 59 points a game, like we did against OU, and you lose, it's kind of like, well, what do you do? So I think it'd probably be Behren 3 for me, Pat 2, and then Graham 1, but that could change. So interesting conversation. Let us know what you think in the comments, because that is something that could very well change. I mean, you're hoisting the national championship trophy here in a few months, or next month. You may be saying Behren Morton. I mean, how could you argue with the national championship? But wanted to transition us as well into the college football playoff talk. Last episode, we talked a lot about Texas Tech's win in the Big 12 championship game, what that means for this program, what it means for Joey's status as, we argued, the best coach in Texas Tech history. But want to zoom out a little bit and look at the playoff picture as a whole. Obviously, Indiana being seeded 1, Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, Tech 4, and so on it goes. Clayton, what are your initial thoughts just looking at the playoff bracket, looking at who got in, who was left out on this year's college football playoff?
Yeah, I feel like the group of teams is probably the correct group, but how the committee got there is so backwards. And like the whole Bama Notre Dame thing, genuinely baffling to me. I can understand why Notre Dame is mad. I still think them opting out of the bowl game is dumb, but like in the rankings, what was it, like 3 weeks ago? They're 9. They're safely in the field. All they did was blow out 3 opponents, and Bama looked extremely shaky for 3 opponents, and they passed them, and then Notre Dame falls all the way out to another team that didn't play. Yeah. I think I would definitely be upset if I was a Notre Dame fan, but at the same time, I think that Bama's resume is better, and they probably deserve to be in. I don't know. I feel like the committee probably should have flipped A&M and Ole Miss. I really don't know what caused them to do that. It's also kind of weird because now that sets up a rematch with Tulane, and if they win that, a rematch with Georgia, and that could have just been avoided if they put A&M ahead, which I feel like they deserve. But I guess my thoughts in general, like the expanded playoff was so that there's no like 5 or 6 seed that gets left out that genuinely had a shot and deserved to compete for the national championship. And I feel like that cutoff is at A&M. And so after that, like those teams probably just, happy to be included in the playoff, but none of them after that have a real gripe of like they deserve more, is my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about this the other day with somebody, and they always mention, well, if you just expanded it, people wouldn't be mad. And it's not that teams think that they should be included. It's that they think that they should be included over other teams. It's not that I think I'm good. It's that I think I'm better than that team. That's where everybody gets mad. It's not, and you see this, the NCAA tournament has 68 teams, and people melt down over it every single year. And it's not that I got excluded. It's that this team got in over me. And so if you think any sort of expansion of especially a committee-driven playoff is going to solve that problem, I don't think it's going to help. And the funny thing is, this would have been the perfect year for a 4-team playoff. It would have been very clear. Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech. Like, Oregon maybe has an argument, but those 14, it would have been a super clean 4-team playoff. So it's funny how some years it works out. This would have been a great year for a 6-team playoff. It's just kind of a really clunky year for the 10-year or the 12-team playoff.
Do you guys like how, just your preference, obviously this is not, the Broadway Shuffle does not run college football, not yet, maybe one day, but do you like the way that the group of 5 teams got in or are slated to get in with this current setup? Do you like that? Because I've seen some people online, like specifically Notre Dame fans, really upset about that, because there's no question that Notre Dame's resume is obviously better than a Tulane or a JMU. There's no question who would win from day one of August training camp with those teams in Notre Dame. Do you like the way it's set up right now with those teams? Because the way it is set up, everyone knows. Like you said last time, Zyler, JMU's not a bad team, but they're not going to go in and really compete with Oregon the same way that if Notre Dame was in that spot at 12, not that they would actually go in and there'd be more of a game. Do you like the way it's set up? Do you not? What are your thoughts there?
So I think I may have kind of a contrarian take on this. The committee that is set up by the Power Four commissioners does everything they can to screw the group of six. Like, they get no consideration, they get no votes, they get nothing. They get to play by the rules that are given to them. And for them to qualify in the rules that were given to them, they hated that Boise got a bye last year, so they removed that. I feel zero sympathy for teams that don't qualify, and I feel nothing but elation for those teams that get to experience this. I don't know why the college football media is hell-bent on dragging down JMU, who was an FCS team 4 years ago and has somehow made the college football playoff. Like, why is that story not celebrated? Like, God forbid we disadvantage Notre Dame one time in their illustrious history so that another team gets a shot. And I know that you want the best teams, but Notre Dame had every opportunity to be one of the best teams, beat A&M or beat Miami. JMU gets no benefit of the doubt. They don't get to schedule anybody good. They get to play the schedule in front of them. The rules are always set up to disadvantage them. And if the Notre Dame wants to pick a bone, it should be with the ACC for having their horrific. Every single problem with the playoff would be solved if the conferences were not as big as they are. Imagine if the ACC had Miami in the championship game and they won, and then Notre Dame is in, and none of this is a problem. The problem is you have a 17-team conference, an 18-team conference, a 16-team, and a 16-team conference. That's where the problem is, and you have these uneven schedules. It's not the playoff format. I am happy that JMU's in. I'm happy that Tulane's in. I think that's a way more fun story. And people arguing about the blowouts, like, I remember Tennessee playing last year. There is such a big difference between the elite level of the sport and even just the really good Power 4 teams. Like, I love it. I think it's an awesome story, and I think people that are ragging on it, I don't know, that's just like, oh, cool, we get to see Notre Dame in the playoff. Like, we're going to get to see that every year for the rest of history. Like, I think it's way more fun that we have JMU and Tulane. But that's just me. I know that may be a little bit of a hot take, but I'll stand out on a ledge there.
I'll admit I don't like having two Group of 5 teams in there, but that is not their fault. That is the fault of the ACC, like you said. The tiebreakers definitely need to be changed next year. There's no way that a 7-5 Duke team should be even given the chance to win conference. So I don't love that we have two Group of 5 teams in there, but I would definitely vouch for Group of 5 inclusion year in, year out. I also see a lot of people complain like, oh, Oregon gets to play JMU. It's like, that is what Oregon gets for having the season that they did, being ranked 5th. Like,
yeah,
that's a reward for what they did. It's not like, I mean, of course, nobody thinks JMU is going to test them as much as like Miami is going to test A&M, but like, they should have had a better season.
Yeah. I don't think that's anybody's fault but the teams that are in those games.
Yeah, and
agreed.
And I mean, you can. There's 100 different ways you can draw it up, right? I mean, you got Mike Leach saying we need to have a 64 team playoff and 32 team and all these different things, and people arguing for this schedule or that schedule. I do think, though, on the Notre Dame front, for me, I understand the NBC contract, and I understand the tradition of being independent, and I understand all of that stuff. But I do think that that if they just joined a conference, a lot of these things, in my opinion, would be kind of maybe not solved, but there would be progress. What do you guys think about Notre Dame? Obviously, I mean, everybody has this conversation all the time, but I know we're talking a lot about Notre Dame and the Fighting Irish. But what do you think about them joining a conference? Would you be in favor of that? Do you think that would solve any of their griping or complaining, or what do you think that would look like? Because from my vantage point, I mean, their schedule outside of Miami and A&M this year and USC was, I mean, pretty meh. Like it just wasn't. There wasn't a lot there. What do you guys' thoughts on
ACC's
A&M
fault for having terrible teams?
Yeah, what'd you say, Zyler?
It's the ACC's fault for having terrible teams. Like, they have that 5-game scheduling agreement with the ACC, and some years it includes Boston College, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and like SMU. It's like, oh, dude, okay, cool. You play one mid team. So once again, this is going to be another contrarian take. I think Notre Dame, and I'm not like a over romantic person about Notre Dame. I think them not being in a conference is one of the last things that's preventing the SEC and the Big Ten from breaking off and saying it is just these two teams. There will be no formation of a super league or a postseason that does not allow for at-large teams because of Notre Dame. They're a top 4 brand in college football, maybe. You could argue even top 3. There will never be a league that doesn't include them. And I think them not joining the Big Ten or the SEC is actually a good thing. They're not beholden to those commissioners, and they're one of the last entities in football that's not under the thumb of Petitti or Sankey and ESPN and Fox. And so I do appreciate that. Now, one thing I think could spawn from this is Notre Dame could say, F this, I hate the Big Ten and the SEC. Maybe it's time for us to form the super conference that we want everybody to be involved in. So that could actually end up, backfiring. But I do think them being independent actually helps the Big 12 in a way, in that the SEC and the Big Ten are forced to develop a postseason system. Because you remember, and we talked about this last year, they have the exclusive rights to dictate postseason format. They just have to consult the Big 12 and the ACC. They've already strong-armed their way in. They still have to allow for at-large components. And I think, despite the Big 12 never getting an at-large bid, that hope still is true. And I at least appreciate that. I realize that's maybe not a mainstream take, but that's kind of where I am there.
I agree. I kind of like that they're independent, but this is like the consequences of them being independent. You said the 5-game scheduling agreement, so that includes the Miami game, and then they have the USC game that's going to be on there every year. So basically, other than that, they scheduled one tough game, and it's like, if you lose your 2 toughest games, like, you don't have a conference championship to bail you out. And this is what happens, like, especially if one of those teams that you lose to is also fighting for a spot on the bubble. So this is just basically the repercussions of kind of a weak schedule. It is very interesting that, like, it feels like they get the absolute bottom of the barrel ACC teams. And that's maybe because the ACC, like, has 12 bottom of the barrel Power 4 teams. But I feel like it's interesting how that works out.
Well, and what's so interesting about, college football and the way it is now, obviously we could talk about Notre Dame, but even, the ACC, it's like, what I love about college football that is kind of, that's different, is that anyone who wants to be good at this point in time, they can be. You have to invest appropriately. You have to have a good coach to put it all together, but you have to be willing to invest and able to invest. And so when you look at the ACC, I don't know how many of those teams really, nobody, it's not public, obviously, but how many of those teams really have invested to the point where they actually care about football, other than truly, Miami obviously has, who else has, Clemson has
SMU.
To a certain point.
North Carolina tried.
But who else? Yeah, well, North Carolina.
Maybe Louisville.
But Louisville, those teams, it's just,
you're
it's
looking
just
at like less
interesting.
than 40% of the league.
Yeah. And that's what's frustrating. And obviously I hope the Big 12, but the Big 12 is still a much better conference than the ACC just by default. And you do see some Big 12 teams investing. West Virginia has 40 commits in this year's class, I think it was. And so they've obviously ponied up and invested. They've dispersed their money. But it's those things for me that I'm like, man, school's not investing again. I'm sitting here. I'm not acting like I'm the biggest investor ever into Texas Tech football. I'm just speaking as an outsider, looking at the sport as a whole. The more you have, the more people and more donors you have investing, the better that is for the sport, and the better it is for your school, because then you don't have these conversations about weak schedules, because you can be good if you just invest and get the right coach. Now it has to go right for you, but at the same time, you can be good if you put the right pieces in the right places.
Yeah, and I think this year's playoff format is testament to that. You have Indiana and Texas Tech, teams who historically have not been college football powers, who both have buys. They're both top 4 seeds, with teams like Ohio State and with teams like Georgia, who are traditional powers. And I think your point's well taken there, Conrad. The other thing that I think I wanted to, and I think it segues nicely, the Utah private equity deal. And I talked about this earlier, like you and what you did last spring will reverberate across next season in a lot of different ways. People are not just going to say, okay, well, they will just dominate our league. And you're seeing that. You're seeing that with West Virginia. And what you and BYU have done on the financial side is forcing Utah into a lot of this. Now, I'm not as against their particular deal maybe as some people are, but it's
Zyler, what did they do for our listeners that
so
maybe haven't seen the news yet?
so Utah Athletics is it's going to spin off the media rights are going to be spun off into a company called Utah Athletics and Properties, I believe is the name, and forgive me for not having all the details correct. And it's going to be owned by the university, but also by a private equity group and also the donors. So it's a weird kind of mix of the university retains control of the athletics, but it's also owned by different groups. And the big thing that comes with it is a massive cash infusion. 500 million is the rumored number. And so, is that progress? Is that the way that everything's going to go? Like, is Utah on the cutting edge of what all of these athletic departments are going to have to do with rising costs? Or is that going to be kind of a canary in the coal mine? And does that signal the impending doom of certain leagues later down the line? I don't think we know yet. I think it's at least aggressive. You could also do the Baylor route and hire a fishing and a hunting AD and retain your coach. You could also do that. So I think there's something to be said for being aggressive and trying new things. I caution Tech fans and at least people to not scoff at it like some programs did with the transfer portal or scoff at it like some people did with NIL. Some things become very routine and normal in college football much more quickly than we may like to imagine, and not being on the cutting edge or front end of some of those things. I won't completely dismiss it out of hand, because there were a lot of people that said NIL would never turn into what it is now. Or that the transfer portal wouldn't be that big of a deal. Maybe there's not a lot of people saying that, but you saw the programs like Baylor who were hesitant to embrace the transfer portal and hesitant to embrace NIL, and you've seen what it's done to them. And I'm thankful for the administration that we have that seems to be very progressive on a lot of this stuff. It's just interesting. The Big 12, I think, is going to be really fascinating next year, and what different teams do to combat what Tech has been able to do this year. They are not going to go silently into the night and just let you run all over this league. And I think that'll be interesting.
Which, Zyler, I think that's a great thing for the league as a whole. I said a couple episodes ago that I think Texas Tech needs to be in the best position possible for Texas Tech, and that was my point. Some people took it a little bit different than I intended it to be taken, meaning that obviously if the Big 12 is not going to invest, you may be better suited elsewhere. But if things like this are going to happen and schools like this, like Utah, are going to invest and better the league, that only helps Texas Tech. My point on that last episode, or a few episodes ago, was Texas Tech needs to be in the best position to succeed, and that includes being in the best conference. Now, if the Big 12, which put on a fantastic championship game, by the way, the way they treated us, we were there, was fantastic. So shout out to the Big 12 for that. But if things like this happen, or go ahead, sorry.
Numbers are up 30% over last year. Is the highest viewed Big 12 championship game since 2022. Almost 10 million viewers. It was almost triple the viewership for the ACC championship game. Like, insane numbers for a conference title game that didn't involve OU and Texas. Like, excellent numbers.
No, and absolutely. And if you have teams that are investing and that are bettering their programs through recruiting and the portal, that only is going to help Texas Tech. That's only going to help the perception of the league, because I think what we've talked about on the show before, and what you guys have both mentioned, as well as Brennan, is the perception battle that the Big 12 faces. Now, if 2 or 3 more teams invested like Texas Tech, and we had a top 4 in the league that were at the caliber of a Texas Tech or BYU, perception changes and things change at that point. And then you have to start considering, okay, now the Big 12 may not have, 6, 7 teams like the SEC, but the top 4 could play with the SEC
Sure.
top 6 or 7. That changes the conversation. And that's what I want for the Big 12. It's just obviously the schools have to do it.
I think that's a great point, Conrad. I wonder what the transfer portal is going to be like and who's going to be out there swinging. Does Kansas State come out swinging with their new coach? Has he rallied the donor base? What does the market look like? Because you may go in and say, hey, it's going to cost us this, this, and this to get this many guys. And then that may get blown out of the water like what Tech did last year. So I wonder who's going to be the disruptor. It should be fascinating.
What if it could be Tech again?
I think
it's going to be Tech. Yeah.
I think he will be a big player in the portal. Not like last year, but big player.
But what's good, and obviously you want to build your program through high school recruiting, but what you can do, I mean, you've seen Indiana, you've seen Texas Tech, but what you have to have, that Indiana and Texas Tech both have, is one of the best head coaches in the sport, right? I mean, we saw what happened with Florida State. That did not work very well. It's those things. You have to have a leader in place to be able to take the program and make these pieces mesh. And you also have to have players that are there, like Behren, like J-Rod, like Bryce Ramirez, the guys we had, to make everything mesh. So let's go ahead and kind of transition into the playoff. I would love to do just a really quick pick'em of the first round games, just so we kind of, I know it's a couple weeks away, but I think thinking about the transfer portal, thinking about Texas Tech, it'd be interesting to know who you guys think will win these games. I know we'll do more official pick'em the week of, but JMU, Oregon, are we all on the Oregon train for the record?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oregon.
By how much?
Yeah.
By how much?
I think something like 34-14.
JMU is not this just like horrible team. It's not like they're admitting the school for the blind. But they're just going to struggle with Oregon's defense is going to be a lot for them. But they'll be aggressive, and they've got talent, and they've invested. And for a Sun Belt team, they're good. I mean, they competed with Louisville for a large portion of that game. I texted you guys. It was one of the first games of the year. I was like, I think JMU is going to win this game. That doesn't mean they'll be able to compete against Oregon and Eugene, but more competitive than maybe people might think.
Yeah, I'll probably take 20 points, but again, I'm not going to be shocked if JMU goes and plays really well, at least for the first half, and keeps it close. All right, next one. Alabama goes to Norman, Oklahoma. We've seen this game before. OU goes into Tuscaloosa and wins, I believe it's 23-20 a few weeks ago. Does that result hold, or what does this look like with Alabama playing OU in Norman?
I don't have a great read here. I want to say Alabama. Alabama outplayed OU last time, but it was at home. Brent Venables has like 3 weeks to get ready for this Bama team. John Mateer gets healthier. I think there's some factors working against Alabama. Alabama has looked horrible the last 3 weeks. Like, if you want to talk form, I will not be surprised to see them get kind of run out of the building. But also that OU offense is horrible. So I don't know. I think I lean Alabama, but I won't be shocked by really any outcome in this game.
I lean OU, but I think it's really ugly, like 17-13 or 17-14. But I think the home crowd and OU's defense and what you said, I mean, Bama legitimately has not looked like a playoff team since the Tennessee game. They are extremely lucky to even be in this position.
It's funny how form only applies when it's not an SEC team. Like, it's just so funny. Like, if that would have been Texas Tech at 9 and we would have lost to, let's say BYU was ranked 4, I have zero doubt that they would have catapulted us out of the playoff by saying, you just look too bad in that conference championship game. Like, it's insane the stranglehold the SEC has on it.
Yeah, I saw a stat on Twitter that like in the last 3 seasons, there's been 16 teams that were ranked in the top 25 going into the conference championship and lost, and 15 of the 16 moved down at least one spot. The only one that didn't is Bama, who got beat by 21. That includes teams that like lost on last second field goals. So yeah, I mean, I feel like the mental gymnastics, it was clearly that the committee had made up their mind what they were going to do. They wanted to replace Notre Dame with Miami. They had it set up with BYU moving down. They thought it would be at least competitive with Bama, Georgia, and they just did it anyway, even though it was a blowout.
They've got to get rid of having this CFP, and to their credit, I know I get frustrated. It is an impossible job defending teams' resumes after 8 data points, and then giving reasons. Like, they need to just be super non-committal about why they rank teams, because they put themselves in these like mental gymnastics where the committee chair said like, well, if teams are in the same tier, head to head comes into play. They didn't think that would come into play, and then eventually it did, and they had to they've just got to stop doing that. And
they're backing themselves into a corner every single time they do it.
100%. It's a thing where they've got to, and I know they have to do a show because ESPN has the contract, but the committee chair has to do a much better job of being really vague about why they rank teams. They honestly shouldn't interview the committee chair. It should just be a panel that talks about it and why they think teams moved. The other thing, this committee was the worst committee in the CFP history. I mean, it genuinely covered themselves in so much disgrace. It was a mockery. They did a horrifying job. Even if I think the eventual result was okay, the weird thing is when you look at Miami over BYU, I don't really think there's a great case for Miami over BYU. Like the wins are like pretty comparable. Like Notre Dame at home for Miami, BYU had Utah at home, who's a top 10 team by most metrics. BYU had a much better strength of record, a much better strength of schedule. There really wasn't a great case. There was a case for Notre Dame, I think, over BYU, but Miami over BYU was not a very compelling case. And BYU had more wins. It was a weird.
Interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like the fact that Miami got in shows you that the committee thinks that Notre Dame is like a top 5 team.
Yeah.
That's the only way it's justifiable is if they really respect them beating Notre Dame. But then they have Notre Dame only a few spots above Utah.
But it's like, I think they're a top 5 team and you're also not in the field. Congrats.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, based on, I think it was, do you think they thought they were a top 5 team based on, I mean, resume played a part in it, but obviously form, y'all were just talking about form. Do you think that was part of their reasoning for that?
Yeah. I mean, their quality metrics are all really good. Like top 5 typically across the board. The one thing that I wish they would do, and to the NCAA's credit, the policies and procedures for seeding and selecting teams in the NCAA tournament is much more clear, much more predictable, and you understand why teams are there in most cases, and people can predict it with pretty good accuracy. They talk about like your resume gets you in, but your quality kind of gets you seeded. So, how good are you kind of seeds you. How good is your resume kind of gets you in the field. And a lot of times those are correlated, but they're not always correlated. They've just got a much better system going, and the college football's got to figure out something that's a little more objective and not so beholden to the corruption claims that I think are very easy to lob and very justifiable at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
It really would be better if Conrad, if they just did the initial reveal in week 8, like the basketball does, and then they don't show us the rankings until the selection.
Yeah, I think
if that was the case, I don't think there would be people like that were really that mad about where it ended up this time.
I think
it's
you're right.
How they got there.
Yeah. Well, to segue us back to the matchups, are we all on board with the Clayton? Who did you say? Did you say OU close? Zyler, you said Bama close. I'm going to go OU close just because it's at home, and that defense against a struggling Alabama offense. I think that defense is just going to eat them up a little bit. But I don't know that the OU offense is going to do much either. So I'll probably say honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 13-7 type of game. I mean, it would not surprise me at all. So next one is Tulane and Ole Miss. I'm assuming we're all going Ole Miss by 2 touchdowns.
Oh, well, I'll give it
more.
3. Yeah. I mean, they've already beaten this team by 35.
Yeah, but you never know. They could play better. So yeah, it'll be a blowout. No Lane Kiffin, but they have Pete Golding, so they'll be just fine. Last one, not least, this one I think will be an interesting game. I think this will be the most competitive game, or maybe not the most competitive, but OU Alabama, and then looking at Miami and Texas A&M in College Station. Do you guys think there's any chance Miami goes into College Station and gets that win? They did it a couple of years ago. Different roster, different coach now. What are your thoughts on the Hurricanes and the Aggies?
I think Miami gets it done pretty easily. I think Marcel Reed is going to have a tough time with this defense. I think you've seen when A&M has played pretty good teams, it hasn't always looked super, super great. I think you're a missed holding call against Notre Dame from them being out of the playoff entirely. So give me Miami, although backing Mario Cristobal in a big spot is like, yeah, that might be the kiss of death. So, but I like Miami in this matchup.
Yeah.
I like Miami as well. I think being at Kyle Field gives me a little pause, but the 11 a.m. kick helps. I think as long as Carson Beck doesn't have one of his like idiot games, I think Miami gets it done. But that's
Yeah.
very much in the range of
Yeah.
outcomes.
Yep.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to look at this game and see, because A&M, we talked about it. They played they won against 7 of the 8 bottom teams in the SEC standings. Which again, I know they have the patch on the jersey. It is the best conference in college football. None of us are arguing with that. But the bottom teams that you play are no better than, in my opinion, are no better than Big 12 teams or even Big 10 teams. I just don't see anything that sets those teams apart from the Big 12 and the Big 10 teams. But then again, that's my opinion. I know there's some contrarians that'll be in our comments with that. But I do think that Miami has a good shot. I will still pick A&M because I just think at home, I think at home it's going to be tough for Miami to go in there. They did it before, but again, A&M still does have some good players. And if Marcel gets loose with his legs, I think A&M has a shot. Now, if they keep him in the pocket and make him throw the ball, then that's a completely different conversation, because I think I've been well documented on this podcast saying I do not believe in him as a passer against top flight teams. And I think if they can keep him in the pocket, that's what you'll see. So that's our college football playoff talk. We've got a lot more of that, where that came from. That's what we got to talk about over the coming weeks. But thankfully, Texas Tech does not have to play in the first round. I would have loved to see a home playoff game, but a first round bye tastes a lot better than a home playoff game, in my opinion. But I want to transition a little bit into the transfer portal. Texas Tech obviously loves the transfer portal. That's a big reason why we are here in this position come 2025, 2026 college football playoff. What do you guys think are the biggest needs looking forward to next year with this roster, wanting to make another college football playoff run? What do we need? What positions? Why? And who do you think may actually enter the transfer portal that you weren't expecting?
I'll be on wide receiver portal watch on our roster. What do guys like Kelby Valson and TJ West do? Even Micah, maybe he, who knows? I haven't heard anything on those guys, but I would assume guys like Kelby are gone. I think as far as needs go, I mean, you're losing your starting 4 defensive linemen outside of AJ Holmes. You'll bring back him and Cofield ideally, but you're going to lose those edge rushers, and then you'll also lose Terrell Tillman and Charles Esters, your kind of backup guys there. So I think he'll be looking for defensive line help again. Now, I don't think it'll be quite the haul that you had last time, but I think you need at least a D tackle and a defensive end that are starter caliber at a minimum, and I think you need a quarterback, like a very good quarterback, and I think you'll go get one. Those are my kind of immediate glaring needs, and then you may be looking for a cornerback, depending on what happens with Bryce. But those are kind of the initial thoughts that I have. I think you'll take 8 to 10 guys. It'll just depend on, what do guys like Howard Sampson do? What do guys like Caleb Douglas do? What does Terrence Carter do? What does I think you will take a tight end too, regardless. It'll be interesting. I think you've got some really interesting roster decisions you're going to have to make in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I feel like the position I'm watching closely for portal entries is running back. Like with Rowden coming in and then Dickey, Williams, Joyner, I just feel like it'd be really hard to keep all 4 of those guys. And obviously Rowden is signed, so he's going to be here. So one of those other 3 feels to me like one of them is going to get in, but I don't know. And then, yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think we probably get a receiver too, and then maybe a safety as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Conrad.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I will say this, I don't think Micah enters the portal. I think he's rebuilt so much. I mean, I think, obviously I would have liked to see him play at points this year, but what he did against West Virginia, I think bodes well for going into next year. I think he'll probably contribute a lot next year as a junior. I mean, he's got the talent, it's never been a question, but now he'll be a starter, and the talent will really be able to blossom. I'm really expecting that from him in 2026. I will say I'm on record as saying I love Brendan Sorsby as a quarterback. I think if he enters the portal, which there's rumors of him doing that, I think he would be an unbelievable addition to this roster. I mean, he's got an NFL arm. That's not a question. He can move to play with talent around him that this team would have and does have even now. would just elevate even his draft stock individually. But speaking of what that could do for the team, I think having a quarterback with his caliber would automatically. I think he could be a Heisman finalist next year. I mean, we obviously know what happened with J-Rod this year, but if you get a guy of that caliber coming in this type of offense with Mac, I think you're going to see sky's the limit truly, and I think it would be even better than this year. Obviously, a lot of that with Behren is injuries and struggling with that. And Barron's also, I mean, Barron's a really good player. We've obviously talked about that on this episode, but Barron's not the runner that Sorsby is. He's not the athlete that Sorsby is, even though he's a good athlete. And so I think if you could get that done, that'd be really cool. But I think, Clayton, I think you have a really good point there about the running back position, because you do. I mean, no school has unlimited capital, right? Like no school, there's not. I mean, maybe it's Texas Tech, but you do have to make decisions about who you're going to keep and who you're going to let walk. And I think you're going to see that happen more so now in college football, especially with proven talents. And so obviously you don't want any of those guys to leave, but at the same time, you do have to make roster decisions. And Rowden is going to be an absolute. I think Rowden will be an absolute superstar, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I would like to see a receiver coming in just with some of those losses that we already mentioned you may have on that spot.
Yeah, that'll be, because I just don't know. And then here's the other thing, like all indications are that Quentin Joyner's coming back, and the rumors are that he's on a 2-year deal. I just don't know how that would work. And Clayton's already allowed, like, do you, because I imagine Dickey and Williams are in for significant paydays after this season. Is it in your best? I mean, you would love to have all three. There's only one football. You know, I just don't know what that looks like and what, you know, because Jacoby and Cam got to do what's best for them too. And Quentin, you know, if it's like, hey, listen, you're going to get 25% of the snaps after maybe you led the Big 12 in rushing. I don't know that I would be super down for that. And I would understand that that'll just be an interesting and a tricky one to navigate for the team. The other one, go ahead.
Do you think? I mean, this is pure speculation. We know nothing about this. This is me as a fan asking a question. With these 2-year deals, is there a way to get out of them from the school's perspective, or is that really what you do to entice the player to sign that to stay? How does that even? I mean, do we even know how that works? Does anyone know how that works, or is that just completely rumor and speculation at this point?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea either.
The other thing that you're losing outside of the production is just, and it's an intangible thing, but the leadership that you'll lose this year. And it's guys like Jacob and it's guys like Behren. And I know Skyler's come in. Yeah, Bryce. Guys like Skyler have come in and become leaders, but that's, I think, the exception, not necessarily the rule. That's just something that's going to be weird if you're replacing kind of the leader on your defense and the leader on your offense. What does that look like from just a chemistry standpoint? I think that'll be a much harder group to meld next year than it will be this year. But those are champagne problems, and I think we'll deal with that when we get there.
Yeah, I think from a defensive perspective, I think you'll be in a good spot. Obviously, having John Curry back, and then having BJ back, and then having Ben Roberts back. I mean, I think you've got plenty of leaders on that side of the ball. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the offense, because the quarterback is the natural position. And if you're going to bring somebody in, which you are because of Will's injury, you have to get that right guy that really can gel this team together. And that's not an easy spot to be in. Obviously, Behren being hurt was not ideal last spring, but it worked out okay for you this year. But having a new quarterback come in, which you're going to have, that will be interesting to see how that plays out, because of all the intangibles that you're, you know, like you said, Zyler, we knew what we had in Behren. The team knew what they had in Behren as a person. And so it was really easy, even though being hurt, to rally around him. But it'll be interesting to see what we get this go around in the portal, because last portal season was a party in Lubbock. And I think it won't be the same, but I think it'll be pretty similar this year in terms of the quality of players you get.
Yep. Agreed.
Do y'all have any final? Is there one player? This is pure speculation, but is there one player? If you could add any other player that's realistic from a college team right now to Texas Tech's roster, who would it be?
The Cal quarterback. He's awesome.
What's his name?
That guy is raw.
Jared,
It's like
Yahweh
Patele.
Sapawagatueli. He's like insane. But no, it would probably be Let me think of like an underclassman. Honestly, Malachi Toney from Miami would be really sick. The freshman
And I was
receiver.
going to say like Cam Coleman
Oh,
or
yeah,
something
Cam
like
Coleman,
that.
actually. Or Jeremiah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that doesn't.
give me
That's not
Jeremiah Smith.
realistic. Is Cam Coleman entering the portal? Or is that even
I
rumored
hadn't
yet? I know
heard
we're
that.
speculating a lot.
That is
This
a hot
episode.
rumor. That is a hot rumor.
It is the rumor?
It is the rumor.
I mean, they
Okay.
have a coaching change, so I wouldn't be surprised.
It's crazy. I cannot imagine what these coaching staffs are dealing with when you have this like 30-day period where people can't technically enter the portal, but you're all still kind of in the same building. Like, what are we doing? Like, are you coming
One
back?
thing, yeah, one thing I want to discuss whenever we start getting more into the game is like both of the Oregon coordinators took head coaching jobs, and the portal opens the day after the Orange Bowl. I feel like that's a really interesting dynamic, and like you cannot convince me that they are fully focused on game planning for that game and not contacting potential players for their team next year.
Yeah,
And they are both still coaching in that game, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the
it's
only
like-
coach that doesn't get to coach in the playoff Lane Kiffin because he went to a rival? In terms of
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Which
And
I
people
still
want to
agree
say
with.
he's not the victim. I don't get it.
No, yeah, it will be. It's not that they're not fully focused, because I think when they're there, they're going to be trying to win the game. It's
For sure.
when you are doing stuff for your future head coaching job, you are, as a fact, not doing stuff planning for the game. And so what does that look like? And it's not that Oregon lacks for resources. It's not like they're not going to have a good game plan. That's not what I'm saying. It just will be an interesting dynamic. The portal literally opens that night. Like that will be fascinating.
It'll be interesting. It's a wild time in college athletics, but that's what we're here for, to keep you covered. Texas Tech first and foremost, but also college sports as a whole. And before we close the show, want to touch base with you guys about Texas Tech basketball. Texas Tech does have one of the perennial basketball programs in the country. Big win over LSU. We talked about it briefly, mentioned it. We didn't get into the details. What are y'all's thoughts on that? I mean, this team obviously is not, it's still the figuring everything out, right? How is this team going to gel together? What does it look like? What are y'all's thoughts on basketball so far in the 2025-2026 season?
Clayton, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, I think what they looked like against LSU is kind of what I've been waiting for this entire season. I feel like they showed flashes against Illinois, even in the loss. But recently it's just been sluggish. Like it doesn't, up until this game, it did not look like they really liked playing with each other. And then in this game, I feel like that all completely changed. They looked like a different team. They definitely needed that break. Christian looked awesome. There was just a lot more energy. I actually really like what I'm seeing from Jalen Petty too. I didn't know exactly what to expect from him coming into the year. And honestly, that was a really good win. I think LSU was like top 20 KenPom going into the game. And he pretty much handled them from tip till final whistle. So I think that was encouraging. I feel like you really need one win between Arkansas and Duke to feel really good about your team going into conference play. But that's a good start. Zyler, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, your resume is already so much better than it was at this point last year. Like you already have, and it's funny, and it won't stay this way, but Sam Houston and Wyoming are Q2 wins. So, and Wake Forest is a Q1 win right now. LSU is a Q1 win right now. So you have I actually think Wake Forest is not a Q1 win right now, but you have 3 Q2 wins and a Q1 win, which I don't think you got any of those last year in the non-con. And so having at least some of that to fall back on, even if you haven't started as well as you'd like to, is such a luxury. And that's why you schedule stuff like this. And so that's been good. I have enjoyed that, knowing that you have some stuff to fall back on. Your resume right now is like right at a 5 seed. And I think that if that's where the season ended today, I think I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, it's one of those things with, non-con for basketball. You're kind of still, I mean, like Clayton said, it's like we didn't even know if this team looked like they enjoyed playing with each other before, against LSU. And so I think what you're seeing, I think, is a testament to Coach McCaslin and his staff. I mean, Grant's teams always get better, which is exactly what you want as a basketball fan, because if you can just get better and you're hitting your stride going to the tournament, good things are going to happen, like we've seen example last year and other years with Grant too. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this continues. Obviously, Arkansas on Saturday, which should be interesting game there in American Airlines Center in Dallas, back-to-back weekends in DFW. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how that looks. Do you guys have a prediction for that game? I mean, obviously we know what happened last year in the Sweet 16. Do you think it'll be more of the same story, or do you think the doors will get blown off the game much earlier?
I've only seen a little bit of Arkansas, but I'm just going to go off what I saw Saturday from Tech. I think we pull out a close one.
I think the size is going to be a problem for us. Arkansas is really big. I think Toppin struggled a little bit in that game against, like, we had the Darion Williams experience, and I don't think you need a really good Lawan Watts game is what I'm going to say there, and you need to shoot well. I trust Grant over Coach Cal. I said it back in that game. He's a better coach than Coach Cal is right now. I will take us to win a 2-point game.
Yeah. I will as well. I think it's a game that you're gonna see. I mean, I don't like Arkansas. I don't care for the Razorbacks very much. So it's a personal game for me. I really want Texas Tech to win from that perspective. But I do think this team, I think they're going to build on what they did against LSU. So I think that'll be good to see. Clay, did you have any final thoughts on Tech basketball?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing that I thought was interesting was Grant took the team to the Big 12 championship and apparently was like talking to them about like, this is what you should look like with your teammates. Like, this is how you should lift each other up. And I just think that's so funny and kind of like full circle that now our basketball team is taking cues from our football team. And like the last, I don't know, however long, like 6-7 years, you would never think that would be the case.
No. That is funny. I didn't think about that. That's a great point, Clayton.
It's crazy how times have changed. And again, why can't you have two good programs? You know, you don't need just one. And we have two right now. We've got two of the best. I mean, I don't think I'd trade Joey and Grant. We can talk about this later, but Joey and Grant for any two other coaches for basketball and football in the country right now, like duo at the same school. I don't think there's one I would.
That is a really good off-season topic that we should get into.
We should talk about that. Yeah. Before we close the show, we have one overreaction reality today. And I would love to know Brennan's answer, but since Brennan's not here, we're going to ask it anyway. And maybe he'll tell us on the next episode. The 2025 Texas Tech football team is better than any of the OU teams that won a Big 12 championship and played in the college football playoff. Overreaction or reality? The 2025 Texas Tech team is better than any of the OU teams that won the Big 12 or played in the CFP. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Ooh.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
I do not know.
It is tough. It's such a toss-up. I feel like the 2017 OU team is like the one that I'm struggling with debating.
Mm-hmm.
That team just had so much NFL talent, like Baker, Orlando Brown, Mark Andrews, CeeDee Lamb, Marquise Brown. Yeah. I think their offense would definitely give this defense more trouble than it's seen all year. But Tech's defense is easily better than that defense was.
Oh, man. I'm trying to find... Dude, I just don't know. So what years did they... I think you would be... You know what? I'll say it. I think you're better than all of those teams. Your SP plus rating, outside of the 2011 team where you're very comparable, you would be at least a 2-point favorite over all of those teams. So I'll go better.
Okay. I'll go reality. I think you're better than those teams, and for the sole reason that I think this defense is just. I would love to know the analytics of where this defense ranks over the last 10 years. Just because it's so good. I don't know that. I haven't looked that up. I think it'd probably be pretty high, right, Zyler?
Yeah, I don't know that it's historical.
Well, sure.
I think if you do a playoff run where you do what you've done to the Big 12 to these SEC and Big 10 teams, it will be viewed as a historical defense.
Yeah.
That's just what you've got to do to get into that category. Nobody's going to write stories about you blanking the 2025 Oklahoma State Sooners or the West Virginia Mountaineers. It'll have to be
the Oklahoma State Sooners?
The Oklahoma State Cowboys. Forgive me. Forgive my slip.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do something like that to Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State or a Georgia, it will be quite the tale. So, especially given that your defense over the last decade is ranked around 80th, that would be the craziest thing. So
Yeah. The greatest 1 year turnaround in the history of anything ever.
I legitimately think Shields should win the Broyles Award. Like what he's done with this unit compared to what it was last year. And it's going to get discounted because of the NIL, but it's like, that doesn't matter. Like the unit is still crazy to have that kind of unit at Texas Tech, but conversation for another time, and hopefully he wins that award.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening this far in. If you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe. It's totally free. Like the video. It helps us out. Hey, we ask you to subscribe, not because we like doing it, but because it helps the show and helps us get this content into more eyeballs as people see it across YouTube and Spotify and Apple. So for Zyler and Clayton, I am Conrad, and we'll see you guys next time on the Broadway Shuffle.
He makes the catch. He's going all the way. 20, 15.